Thank you tonight, and I want to just say once again, I'm here with you tonight, and I want to believe that we're going to have a wonderful time. Now, I've been discussing about the dark side, awareness of the dark side. You know, why the dark side is so important is that it's one of those aspects of our life and character that, in as much as it may work well for you and I, at some stage it also disrupts what we do, disrupts our relationship, disrupt our business organization. At the same time, we have identified certain traits of a dark side. The dark side is one of the ugliest side of you that you don't really want it to come out. But at the same time, there are triggers of this dark side. You know, no one wants to be a bully. No one wants to shout in the public or shout at his employees or co-leaders or business partner, or even in your marriage. And so dark side is the part of your personality that is very ugly. In some cases, we have seen that someone who is a narcissist, that narcissism is a dark side of his life. Yes, some have become great leaders, but at the same time, they have had so much of consequences leading to their failure. In other aspect of dark side, like I mentioned during one of my classes, that dark side is that aspect of your life that may be a secret. And I mentioned that it may be a secret sin, it may be a secret behavior or indulgence or a kind of addiction that you know that no, this is not what you want your business partner to know about, even that you don't want your married partner to know about. So many things like that can constitute a dark side. And so we have looked at some of the traits, and then I went further to look at the other dark side of our behaviors, like being a proud person, whereby you look down on other people. It's a kind of a pride, and whereby you also take all the praises of any success built around you by the effort of other people, and you amass the praise to yourself. It's also seen as a kind of a pride. And so pride sometimes that emanates from an individual becomes their dark side, because it's not good of them. It does not create a sort of an atmosphere of growth. And so I have taught on number of that. Last week we began to look at how do we overcome our dark side. How do we overcome our dark side? I began last week by saying that we need to be teachable. We must desire, that teachable spirit. Teachable spirit is a humble spirit. And I gave you a scripture reference from Psalm 51 verse 12, where the psalmist also desire of the Lord a willing spirit. So this is very important for us, that we become teachable in order for us to change character or to amend our attitude in some areas of life and relationship. Secondly, I mentioned that for you to overcome your dark side, you need to develop what I refer to as peer accountability. Peer accountability, or you find an accountable partner, but I refer to it as a peer accountability. In other words, you will have a friend, an associate that you are all on the same level, whereby you can speak truth to yourself. And that's what I meant by peer accountability. And I gave you some instances that this peer approach, it suggests that you seek a friend or an associate that you share common problems, and at the same time you share solutions. And that is what I meant by that. The peer accountability, I mentioned again that it's not about being judgmental of one another when you find one. It is based on trust. It is based on your level of maturity. And these are people that are your mates that you can relate your problem to, and you share problem with one another. Why peer accountability? Because it will help you to check your excesses, and it will help you to overcome challenges in personal lives, challenges in your leadership styles. It's important to note that you do not, do peer accountability with friends who only tolerate you. I mentioned that last week. Very, very important that when we talk about peer responsibility or peer accountability, we're desiring people that have concern for us. They have concern for your organization or for your church or for your business. And this, you're able to relate with them, and you're able to share intimate problem with them, because they also share with you their intimate problems and solution. So that is where we left it last week. And today I'm going to continue on that, and we look at another factor on how you can overcome your dark side. Now, excuse me, if you embrace a peer accountability, you must become true to yourself. You must be transparent to each other, to tell the story as it is, because in your peer accountability, as a way for you to overcome your ugly side, to overcome whatever is secret in your life, that it's a dark side, that when it blows in the open, it can actually destroy what you are building. It can destroy your marriage. It can destroy your church. It can destroy your business. So you need a peer accountability where you can get help. Now, what am I saying? You need to be true to that person. Either you are a victim or victorious. Because in peer accountability, you must be open to hear words from your peer, from your mate. Words like, I think you have overreacted. Certain mistakes you don't, rebuke openly. Something like that. What am I saying there? Your peer will be able to tell you where you have overreacted. Your peer will be able to tell you that what you have done in the open, what you have said in the open, you are not supposed to say that. That is what a peer accountability can give you. They do a sort of, they take a sort of a microscope over your character, over what you do, and that's why they are peer partners, because they are so close to you. They know what you do, so you can take from them as to amend, as to correct what you need to correct, or make good decisions. So there are advices from you also to those other peers, but they are true friends. They are not just people who tolerate you. Peers, friends that you hold so close must be authentic. They must be authentic. They must learn to be confidential of what you discuss about. And in some cases, they will be sympathetic. So in you trying to overcome your dark side, you need to develop what I refer to as a peer accountability. Those that you give account to, those that you speak to, and those that also speak to you and give you some correction. Peer accountability, they are friends and mates that can look you into the eye and tell you that, friend, you are wrong. That's it. That's what peer accountability is. Now, let's look at another point tonight on how you can overcome the dark side. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're watching, the dark side of our personality is the ugly side of our personality. However, some studies have shown that there is the bright side, which also works for individual, and that some dark side, like a strong personality, someone with an authoritative character, can do well to drive his workforce. But certain literature have revealed that you find that when there is the excessive strong character in a work environment, some employees either voluntarily leave or they resign. So what we're saying today, as much as your strong personality works for you, helps you to develop your organization, Your strong personality can also work against you, or your dark side, which is a secret, can also destroy what you're building. Now, let's look at number 2 that I want to discuss tonight. Actually, number 3 points. I've mentioned you must be teachable, to have a teachable spirit. And I'm saying you must develop a peer accountability. Number 3, you need to be open to feedback. You need to be open to feedback. It's not easy for leaders to get feedback, either from their staff, from their co-leaders. The reason being, and I think I mentioned that some people are not able to tell the truth to the leader. They're not able to tell the truth to the leader. Some leaders also are not ready to hear the truth. They are not ready to hear the right word. But when we talk about the feedback is systematic way of getting a feedback, on your character, on your decisions, on your actions. So when I'm talking about feedback, it's a systematic way of conversation that brings out a whole lot about you, about your action, about your decisions, and the consequences. So you need to be open to feedback. Feedback is a report of your actions, attitude that may be coming back to you. That's what this feedback will give you. And that's a way you can overcome certain dark side of yourself. Either you are proud, either you probably you confront, you like to be confrontational. Those are the things you will find out when you start hearing feedback. So it's something that is coming back to you, or maybe it's about a decision, it's about a program, it's about where so much has been dispensed in terms of human resources and financial resources, and you are getting a feedback. Maybe that was a waste in what you have done as a leader. So feedback is good. So feedback is like you are looking into the mirror that doesn't lie about you. That's the way I describe it. That feedback is like looking into a mirror that does not lie about you. A mirror does not lie. It gives you the cues. It gives you the cues on your character. It gives you the cues on your leadership style. It gives you the cues about what is going on around you. So a feedback is a way for you to overcome certain aspect of your attitude that may be creating a wrong environment, a wrong atmosphere. So you need feedback reports. And that is when you get a honest feedback from those working with you, from your confident allies and your true followers. That's how you get feedback. I want to give you an example from the scripture. And I believe you believe the scripture. But let me use it because that's what I believe. In Matthew chapter 16, I saw something there, and I don't know if you want to reason with me. Jesus asked for a feedback from his disciples in Matthew chapter 16, and I believe he was asking for a feedback, and he asked them, when they came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he was asking his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Have you thought about it at all? He was trying to get a feedback from his disciples, because you can't get feedback from a stranger. You can only get feedback from those who are allies, who are followers, who are your co-leaders, who are your lay leaders, because they witness what you do, you did it together, or they look at you doing it. So I saw Jesus when he went into ministry with his disciples. At the time they came back together, and he sat them down, and I said, look, guys, who do people say the Son of Man is? And then they all say all kinds of things. Some say you are Elijah, some say you are Jeremiah, some say, you are John the Baptist again, or whatsoever. But he now flipped back the question to them and said, but you, who do you say that Son of Man is? He asked the whole 12 of them. Only Peter replied and said, "Thou art Christ, the Son of the living God." That was by revelation. But my point here, I'm using this illustration to say sometimes as leaders, we need to get feedback on the impression of people about us. Now, what I'm saying that in order for you to overcome your dark side, a behavior that is hurting other people, a behavior that is not making people free around you, or you are not able to keep friends, it might be that you need a feedback. I've sat with a couple of friends who ask me, what do people think about me? So you can get a feedback from those who are close to you, and they will be able to tell you. And if they are not telling you directly, you can pick. So feedback is also very good. So I'm using this to illustrate why it is good to have feedback in order to help us to build our personality, our character, to focus on what we are called to do. So this report will test your humility. Feedback will test your humility. It may bruise your ego, but at the same time, it increases your strength. If you really want to have a transformation of your character, transformation of your relationship, a feedback is so good. The feedback of your flaws, and then you're able to develop a very good interpersonal relationship. So sometimes you receive a feedback to hear feedback on your decisions, your actions, and its impact or consequences. That's one of the reasons why we also take a feedback, because most of the actions we take as leaders, our personalities are behind those actions. Some of the choices we make as well, our personalities are behind certain choices. Our way of reasoning are behind certain choices. Our aggressiveness are behind certain decisions that we make. So when we seek a feedback, it helps us to to critically look at the consequences and where we have been wrong. And some of those wrong are due to our attitude towards certain things. So this report of feedback will test your humility. It will test your humility, and it's overall to give you an insight of some of your decisions, the actions that you have taken, and the consequences. Now, how do you use feedback? How do you make use of this feedback? What must you be ready when you want to obtain a feedback? Let me give you 1 or 2 points before I close for tonight. Now, when you want to make use of the law of feedback, is number one, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable to receive it objectively. You have to be vulnerable, because if you are not ready to be vulnerable, you cannot take feedback. You cannot take feedback. That's it. So you must be vulnerable to make use of feedback, to receive feedback. If you are leading a good course, you must be vulnerable. And vulnerability is for you to be ready to take the shame of the moment, to take responsibility. So you have to be ready to be vulnerable. And then you are able to reflect on the situations. You are able to reflect on the situations when your dark side was exposed, and critique the triggers. Let me repeat that. I mentioned to you that one of the ways to make use of a feedback is for you to be vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, you're able to receive whatever the feedback is, especially that which has to do with you, that which has to do with your actions and your decisions. And I said that your decisions, your actions are reflections of your personality. They are reflections of your character. That's where you can pick up the dark side, and you are able to overcome it when you take the feedback. So feedback will show you when you're vulnerable to hear it, will show you what exposed you to that decision, what is the trigger. More importantly, when you get a feedback of your anger, you're able to determine, what stirred up the anger? Was it necessary for you to react, or you just simply respond? So you're able to trace back how come the anger. You are able also, you can get certain feedback whereby certain languages that you may have used, they are repulsive. You can question, because how would you have used such a repulsive language that is never part of you, but it's an expression? It's an overflow of your dark side. And so this is what a feedback can give you. You must be vulnerable. You must be vulnerable. Now, why must you also be vulnerable when you want to take a feedback? To be vulnerable, you are able to also express your weakness. You're able to express your weakness. There's nothing wrong to express weakness. You're able to express it. And at the same time, you can also express your dislikes in certain situations, especially what may have triggered that dark side. And from there, you are able to correct things, you are able to overcome, you are able to learn to respond rather than react. You are able to learn to respond appropriately rather than reacting. That is what a feedback can give you on how to overcome that. Number two, how do you use the feedback as a way to overcome your dark side? When you want to receive a feedback, either in a corporate setting, in organizational psychology, you need not to be defensive. In other words, don't be a defensive person. Don't be defensive. Nor should you sort of manifest a sort of a defensive posture in a conversation setting, because it's going to determine the atmosphere of that very meeting or conversation if you are not, if you are not careful. Because if you are looking for a feedback to know why things did not work, you need to appear in your humble state. You need to speak less. You need to speak less so that you're able to listen. So don't be defensive if you want to make use of a feedback in the process to overcome certain dark side that you may now be aware of. And that's very important. In other words, you have to be open-minded to hear constructive criticism. Even if you have explanation, you must be open-minded in a conversation of a feedback to hear constructive criticism. And this will allow you to be able to pinpoint what may help you to change your attitude. Because when there is a free discussion or conversation, it allows the flow of communication, and making use of a feedback from a meeting or from a report that you have asked for, will help you to be more effective. Will help you to be more effective either as a leader or in your relationship or in your projects where you get feedback in those projects. So this will help you to change certain attitude towards certain things. So when you are getting a feedback and you are coming with this free spirit to receive, don't be defensive. Don't come here with a defensive posture or appearance. For example, If someone is giving a report or saying something and you do not allow that person to finish, you interject that person's statement, or when that person is speaking, you do not allow them to finish or to arrive at their point, but you pick the first point without waiting for the conclusion. You cannot really, you are being defensive. So in using a feedback, when you are ready to listen, don't be defensive. Don't interject, because when you interject someone, it provokes, and then you might miss some vital information. And that's why don't be defensive when you want to make use of a feedback, to hear from people what they think about you. I gave an example from the scripture from Matthew 16, when Jesus asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? And they were all mentioning different names. He didn't even stop them. But he now asked them, but you guys, who do you think the Son of Man is? And only one of them got the revelation. That was fine for him. And he did not even argue it. He gave him a word. So I'm saying today, when you want to use a feedback as a form of source of knowledge of yourself, to better yourself, to better your leadership style, to move forward, either you have failed or you are succeeding, you need a feedback to be able to move forward. Now, so I just want to say that you wouldn't miss vital information if you allow the flow of communication when you are receiving a feedback, and this is key for you to overcome a dark side, and how your dark side has been disruptive, how your dark side has emotionally damaged other people, how your dark side, your bullying or your narcissism has really caused some people emotional pain, that they even left your organization, they left the workplace. So you need a feedback. It's very key. It's one of the ways by which you can overcome your dark side. You need to hear. And I want to put a stop here tonight because of my time. A feedback is like a mirror that tells you the fact. It's like a mirror that does not deny. So that's what feedback is, the way I can describe it. And you need to make use of it in order for you to better your relationship, to better your business relationship, your social relationship, your social skills, and to be, more or less gain full awareness of yourself. Because when you gain full awareness of yourself, you will be able to relate better with other people, and you'll be able to carry on much better. Thank you for listening. I'm going to continue on this point next week, and I hope that the few that I've spoken tonight, the few words I've spoken have blessed you. Thank you so much. Now, before I go, I just want to remind you of our next week leadership conference, and I'm really desiring that you come to support this seminar. I know there's registration involved, but feel free to contact me. Feel free to contact me if you are willing to. We can always make arrangement for you, and I pray that this is a way for you to prepare for the future, even though you don't have a clue of your future, but what you do today is a reflection of where you're going. Thank you so much for listening, and our conference next week is starting on the 24th, 25th, 26th. It's 3 days, but half a day that you need to sow that seed. Half a day for 3 days, and I've got good teachers that are coming, facilitators that are coming. They are all on the screen there, and I want you to join us. And I believe that it shall be a wonderful time for you to network with other leaders and to have conversation with people that can give you some vital information on how you move forward. Thank you so much. If you are watching for the first time, my name is Abe Adenigba, and I'm the director of Shekinah Institute right here in Johannesburg. Thank you tonight for listening, and we'll continue on how to overcome our dark side next week. God willing, may God bless you. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful week.